I asked you to the testing laboratory to show you what I've discovered about the new motor we put on our Make-Sure blender.
This had better be good. The Make-Sure is a new model.
Yes, sir. The blades are larger and sturdier, and our claims for it are larger.
But Roger appears to think something is wrong with it, Mr. Beach.
Look for yourself, Mr. Beach.
Well, there's always one defective machine.
Not one defective machine, Mr. Beach. We've manufactured at least 200,000 of them, with motors too weak to do what we claim they do.
Sounds as if you should have caught that before now.
I'm not the one trying to match competition's new model before it gets on the market.
How many have you tested, Roger?
175. There's no sense testing more when you know the motor doesn't have the strength to blend at high speed.
Can people still use them?
Sure, the blender will just grind to a stop, and eventually the motor will burn up its coil. As far as I can see, it's bad business to put even them on the market. Rather than risk the Carson reputation, I'd say recall them.
You're talking big money, Roger. Not to mention the effect on stockholders.
I don't think we should recall them, Mr. Beach.
No?
No, every year we pay our advertising agency millions of dollars to handle sales and marketing on Carson products. Let them work up a campaign, a word of guarantee right. We'll unload all of them before anyone knows what happened.
What about the guy who's buying this thing?
What about him? He's out a few dollars. We'd be out millions.
You have to try to be a little less naive, Roger. Let the buyer take care of himself.
The intense competition between big businesses has all too often placed the concept of honesty and profits miles apart. With income used above self-respect as the criterion for success, there is little wonder that every means possible is employed to obtain the consumer's dollar. Yet the Bible and the Proverbs said, "Bread gained by falsehood is pleasurable to a man, but afterward his mouth will be filled with gravel." The gain made by falsehood may be pleasurable, but the aftertaste can be bitter and impractical. It takes great fortitude for the manufacturer not to give in to dishonesty, and wisdom on the part of the consumer not to be duped by the dishonest manufacturer.
There's a display for the new blender, Mom.
Now, let's take a look at it first before we buy it.
But, Mom, I've saved up enough of my own money to get one. It would be exactly what we need in the kitchen.
How do you do? My name is Patty Roberts.
Hello.
Hi. I represent Karsten Affiliates. We make the Make-Sure blender you see displayed. We're using Lakewood as a test market for our new model, and we'd like to ask you a few questions, if you don't mind.
We really haven't purchased one yet.
But we are interested.
Well, what led you to be interested?
I saw it advertised in the newspaper. And then you've got all the posters around here.
And how about you, ma'am?
My daughter seems to have her heart set on getting a blender. I guess there's no harm.
We do furnish a 5-year guarantee with these blenders, effective from the date of purchase. Thank you for letting me talk to you. Here are 2 complimentary discount tickets toward the purchase of any other Karsten product in this store.
Thank you.
And we do hope you buy a Make-Sure blender.
Karsten's motto is a fine product within the reach of every man, and we feel your company's standards of printing and service are in line with that sentiment.
We like to keep up a good reputation, Keith.
Excuse me, I was told you wanted to see me, Harry.
Oh, yes, Joe. This is Keith McKay from Karsten. I think you've met.
Oh, yes. How do you do, Keith?
Keith is here to contract our doing all Karsten's promotional printing for the next year.
We just did a sample job for their line of Make-Sure blenders.
We want to expand that to a few national campaigns, Joe.
They'd like us to meet with the company executives in admin tomorrow morning at 10:30.
Sure.
We'll see you tomorrow morning.
Mom, something went wrong with the blender.
Oh, Debbie, maybe you could try running it a little slower. You might have overloaded it or something.
All right, Mom.
Hello, everybody.
Hi,
hello,
Daddy.
Joe.
Well, you certainly look serious. Did a catastrophe happen?
Debbie bought a blender at Blackman's new store today.
I got a special price on it,
But
Daddy.
it won't work.
It won't.
Can you look at it, Daddy?
All right, Debbie, but I'm afraid you'll have to take your concoction out of it first.
It's finished anyway, Daddy.
And while she's pouring that out, will you get me my tools in the drawer, Fran?
Sure thing, Joe. Here, Joe.
Thanks. You can't do too much with it or you might lose your guarantee.
I have my guarantee right here, Daddy.
Did you read it over, Deb?
I thought all guarantees were the same.
Well, not when you read them carefully. Now this is strange.
What?
What's that, Daddy?
Well, the motor looks small to be doing what it should be at the speed it's set up to do it.
But they had a guarantee, Daddy.
Well, that may be. But one thing you have to realize in this world, Debbie, is that you have to be very careful when you buy anything. Remember what the Bible said in Hosea? It said that Jehovah has a legal case with the inhabitants of the land for their pronouncing of curses and practicing of deception.
So we kind of live in a world where there's a pronouncing of curses and practice of deception, huh, Daddy?
That's exactly right, Debbie.
But why would they write something untrue, Daddy?
Well, once you've bought it, there's not always a lot you can do about it. And I'll bet after reading that guarantee closely, it may not say much more than that a part will be replaced if it breaks due to defective manufacture, and that's all.
But no parts are broken.
Well, there you see, Debbie. Because of the way that many may try to deceive you, it's better when you buy things to beware and be careful.
But the lady there was so nice.
Lady?
Yes, Joe. They had one of those promotional censuses taken there. Gave us a couple of discount tickets and...
I begin to see. Karstens is running a big promotional campaign on this. And Harry and I are supposed to meet with him tomorrow. I think I'll mention it to him.
Yes, Patty, there's nothing like a woman to get another woman's viewpoint. What'd you find out at Blackman's?
The posters attracted a lot of people to the blender display. Television, radio, and newspapers drummed up attention, and everybody liked the discount tickets.
And sold a lot of blenders. Don't forget that.
And sold a lot of blenders. But if you ask me, Mr. Beach, selling bad blenders is not very wholesome on the conscience.
It's business, Patty. The reason I'm boss is I understand that.
I still think you don't have to pass losses off to the consumer.
Let me worry about that, Patty, and you worry about being a secretary.
All right, dear. I'll talk to them about it. Good. Fine. Goodbye. That was the wife, Joe.
Yes?
She bought one of those Karsten make-sure blenders we made all the posters for.
And?
It doesn't work, Joe. Every time she runs it fast, it jams up.
I wanted to mention that to you, Harry. The same thing happened to Debbie last night. She bought one of those.
She did?
I looked at it. The motor they put in is too small to do the job.
Oh? Well, if that's so, it makes me wonder what we're getting into this morning.
It makes me think of a Bible proverb, Harry. He that is walking with wise persons will become wise, but he that is having dealings with the stupid ones will fare badly.
Mix with the wrong crowd, and you can only expect the worst.
I guess you might say that.
Well, if this outfit is trying to hoodwink the public, and we get mixed in with them, it isn't going to do our reputation any good. As far as I can help it, we won't have anything to do with fraudulent advertising, for Karsten affiliates or for anybody else.
I'm glad you could come before the admin got here. I wanted to talk to you about the campaign.
All right. Go ahead.
Here's the type of ad we have in mind you're doing. You've handled this kind of work for us before.
But we want you to do something on a long-term contract basis. Ship all our work over to you.
It's a good offer. Joe, what do you think of the layouts?
I don't see any immediate problem, Harry.
Everything will be for national distribution, Joe. 30,000 impressions minimum order on anything.
I notice you have your make-sure blender line here, too.
Yes, magnificent little machine. We recently modified the line to put it in a better price range. You know, a fine product within the reach of every man. That's what we want.
Have you thoroughly tested out this product before you started marketing it?
Karstens would never begin marketing unless it was absolutely sure of its product.
Well, Roger Johnson over here works in testing. Tell him, Roger.
Yes, we tested it.
And what did you find?
The Karsten make-sure standard Model B blender is completely operational.
Look, Harry, let's get down to contract talk. I'm anxious to get this over with before the ad boys show up.
Listen, Richard, I've already had dealings with you.
Oh, let's let bygones be bygones. Patty, do you have the contracts?
Here you are, Mr. Beach.
Are these your standard contract forms, Patty?
Yes, sir.
I don't see any notice on this contract of the 1-year printing. What do you see, Joe?
Well, that's kind of understood.
A gentleman's agreement, so to speak.
Well, from what I see of them here, Harry, it specifically mentions this blender job.
Well, I think I've had it with a double talk. An operational blender. That just means it runs when you turn it on. Why is it that when my wife tried one out, the minute she put it on high speed, it stopped?
Because the motor is too small to do the job, that's why.
What do you mean by that? It's the most economical size for producing...
What economical means is that the thing is too cheap to work. That's what it means.
Richard, Joe and I have an agreement on some things. One is that if we get into bad company, we don't like to stay there. If this thing boomerangs, I don't want to be near anybody holding the bag.
Wait a minute, Harry. You don't mean you'd throw away a whole contract like this over some silly little blender?
That's a matter for my conscience to
But,
decide.
Harry, be reasonable.
You want me to take part in advertising a product that doesn't work? Why don't you just fix the lousy thing?
It's too expensive.
I don't think Roger wants to keep his job, Mr. Beach.
I'd like to keep my self-respect besides making an honest dollar.
And I'd like to keep this company in profits.
And I think you can do it without the aid of Goodman's printing.
Mr. Beach, suppose we had some instructions printed saying not to run the blender at high speed and limiting what you can put into it. Then maybe Mr. Goodman might
That
print.
sounds a little more reasonable.
We have to match competition to sell. Reducing product claims won't do it.
Underclaim and undersell them then, Mr. Beach.
I'm not sure old man Carston would appreciate that.
And I'm afraid those are not my terms.
There's a proverb, Richard, that says, bread gained by falsehood is pleasurable to a man, but afterward his mouth will be filled with gravel.
As far as I'm concerned, it's not only bad for the conscience, it's bad for business to be a party to this sort of selling.
Money can buy a lot of conscience.
Money
Goodman.
can't even buy you a printing job from my company, McKay.
I'll have to be a lot more careful when I buy anything from now on, Daddy, especially from Karstens.
Well, Deb, maybe all their products aren't like the blender.
But it sort of makes you wonder anyway.
Well, hello, Mr. Summers.
Well, hello, Patty. What are you doing here?
Mr. Beach wants me to try out some more public reaction and so forth to a new campaign for this blender.
Oh?
Yes, they had so many problems, they decided to lower prices and change tactics. But, Mr. Summers, what I wanted to say was, I sure appreciated the way you and Mr. Goodman stood up for what your conscience told you to do, no matter what. It was a good lesson for me.
Well, Patty, over the years, I've tried to keep my conscience in harmony with Bible principles. They can give a lot of peace of mind. And Harry Goodman, little by little, has come to appreciate that, too.
Well, I admire it. I don't know if I could do it, but I do admire it.
For we trust we have an honest conscience as we wish to conduct ourselves honestly in all things. An honest conscience for conducting ourselves honestly. Thus, the book of Hebrews exhorts us to deal honestly both for the sake of conscience and for the more practical good it does us.
The program, All Scripture is Beneficial, is produced by the Watchtower Society and presented by Jehovah's Witnesses.